Just three ordinary guys trying to understand the crazy world around them. We don't have all the answers, but we've got all the questions. You're listening to Just Add Bourbon with Jimmy, JD, and Brad.
Welcome, everybody, to the Just Add Bourbon podcast. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr.
I'm Brad Broaddus.
And I'm JD Dameron.
And it is another beautiful Sunday evening here in the hills of eastern Kentucky. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, Brad. I don't know if there's a happier person sitting in this room right now than JD Dameron, because his Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl.
There we go. There's not a happier person in this room, I can promise you that.
How long has it been since the Chiefs have been to the Super Bowl, JD?
I mean, just 50 years, no big deal.
No joke, it's been 50 years?
Yeah, Super Bowl 4, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So they went to Super Bowl 1, right?
Yeah.
And it was them in Green Bay.
Yes.
That's what they were talking
Yes,
about. If Green Bay was to win, then it would be a repeat of the first Super Bowl.
Yep.
So, but since Super Bowl 4, they haven't been back.
We haven't been. And that's what, and it's good because, nobody on this earth could call me a bandwagon fan. But I've been there through the good times and the bad times, and I'm excited, man. You know, we got the quarterback, we got the coach. I'm ready to get it done.
I don't know if I've ever asked you this or not before, but how did you become a Chiefs fan? What brought you to be a Chiefs fan?
All right, so, when it comes to football, I'm pretty hardcore. I like defense. I like hard-nosed stuff. I like that. So, you guys, I'm sure, remember the Nigerian Nightmare, Christian Okoye.
Oh, yeah.
So, he had a quarterback who played for them at the time called Steve DeBerg.
Yeah. You remember Tecmo Bowl? The very first Tecmo Bowl?
J.J. Burton and Stephon Page? Absolutely. But anyway, that's who played for the Kansas City Chiefs at the time. And so, that was 86, 87. That's when I was 7, 8 years old.
You couldn't freaking stop Okoye on that game. He was a beast.
So, that's when I became a Chiefs fan because Steve DeBerg had played with a pin sticking out of his hand. It looked like a golf tee. And it stuck out about 3 or 4 inches. And he was handing the ball off 30, 35 times a game to Christian Okoye. And I was like, you know what? That cat right there is tough. That's me, my squad. And ever since then, man, I've just been rolling with the Chiefs.
Brad, do you have an NFL team, a random team? We're all fairly close to Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. Geographically, those are two probably the closest teams to us. But do you, because I know you don't watch a ton of NFL, but do you have a team, a random team, like JD's a Chiefs fan?
Not really. I always liked the Chargers for some reason. I have no clue why. But nobody that I really got any emotional stock in. And, if the Bengals had a good year,
my whole family,
I would cheer for them. But
I'm sorry. My whole family is Steelers fans, and I was actually going to jump on that bandwagon. And I don't know if this may be the middle child syndrome coming out of me, but I was going to jump on the Steelers bandwagon like everybody else in my family, and my brother gave me such a hard time. He was like, oh, you're just going to be a Steelers fan because I am. I was like, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to be a Chiefs fan,
Well, my team, I cheer for the Bengals, of course, sadly.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you cheer for the Bengals?
That is of all the questions we've asked on this show, that may be the best one. But my other team was the Washington Redskins, because kind of probably something similar, when I was just coming up and maybe watched the first Super Bowl that I really maybe was into it or whatever. It was the Washington Redskins played the Raiders. And they had Theismann and Riggins. Yeah. And so I've just always been a Redskins fan. That's kind of like my random team, and they suck too. So, I really can't pick them, with the Bengals and then the Raiders. The Skins.
No, but I can't overstate how happy I am right now. It's been a long time coming. You don't understand. People don't understand how frustrating this has been being a Chiefs fan and all the great. We've had some really good football teams over the year and just never been able to punch our ticket to the Super Bowl. So to finally be in the big game, I'm pretty excited.
And JD's got his Rolling with Mahomes 15 shirt on. Is that what that says?
Yeah.
15?
Yeah.
I don't have my glasses on.
He's a 15.
Yeah. So, but no, in all seriousness, congratulations, man. That's awesome. I know what it's like when your team, just like for us, when Kentucky does well. I know JD's a UK fan too. But when JD was so excited, we didn't start doing this show so we could watch the last 4 minutes of that game. So, and it was clearly in hand. So, so JD, one other thing I wanted you brought to our attention, I was out of town this weekend, and JD sent a text and said, hey, have you guys seen this Aaron Hernandez documentary on Netflix? and I have not had a chance to watch it. Brad, did you say you hadn't had a chance to watch it either?
No, not yet.
So can you kind of give people? I mean, we all know who Aaron Hernandez is. He played for Florida. I remember him being in Florida. He was on the Patriots. He was one of their big tight ends. Him and Gronk, Super Bowl champion, and then all of a sudden, do kill somebody.
So, like, one of the things that stood out to me about this documentary is, first off, Aaron Hernandez, of course, he played in Gainesville, Florida, and was an All-American, and really stood out even on that team that was filled with a whole lot of talent, right, and won a national championship. But what people don't know is Aaron Hernandez is actually from Connecticut. And I thought, that he'd come from probably a South Florida neighborhood, full of thugs, and that's because he's covered with the tattoos, and he gives you this persona that he was, thugged out. But Aaron Hernandez is from the New England area. And, he won a national championship in Florida, and he gets drafted by the Patriots. And so one of the things that really led to his downfall is that he got to come home and be around all those good and bad influences of where his hometown in Connecticut when he got drafted by the Patriots. Where he also was a standout. He got drafted the same year as Rob Gronkowski, and he actually outperformed Gronkowski. And, like, if you want to see a story how fast somebody's life can spiral out of control, check out this Aaron Hernandez story. Like, it's pretty cool.
Because I haven't seen the thing on Netflix.
I'm not sure that cool was the right word to use, but
interesting, probably.
Interesting,
Just an interesting, because I am going to check it out. I found that whole thing interesting, and then he ultimately committed suicide. And you just kind of you kind of wonder, man. I mean, the guy had it all: national championship at Florida, Super Bowl, and was a beast. I mean, him and Gronk were beasts, man.
Well, and like what was one of the interesting things about and they didn't really go into it as deep as I thought they would, but I mean, Aaron Hernandez, was a good looking guy too, and a lot of the females, like when he got pulled up for these charges, supported him, but just because he's such a good looking dude, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he reminds me a lot of myself. I don't understand why the laughs were coming, but
no, but I'm going to check that out, and I think Brad maybe because there is a lot of internet buzz about this story, about the Hernandez story, and about these documentaries. There's even another documentary I want to say is coming on like Lifetime or something like that. I saw it previewed on TV, so maybe that's something we can talk about, because I think that would be incredibly interesting to get into. For sure.
Not even from an athletic, but it's just interesting cases. Like, he had a couple cases, but
so
definitely
maybe
going forward.
If you're listening, maybe check it out this week, and we'll talk about it next week. And send us some comments on the Facebook page or the Twitter page or whatever, and we'll read some of your comments on the show here and have some discussion about it.
Not the Instagram page. Do not comment on the Instagram page.
The Instagram page would be pointless. But Brad does run Twitter. JD runs Facebook. So we will get your messages there. All right. So let's get into a couple of things this week from a technology standpoint. So there's a story, and this has actually come up a couple of times, where the federal government, the FBI, has reached out to Apple and asked them to unlock phones for, people who are terrorists. And the most recent case is this deal that happened down in Pensacola, Florida. And they wanted them to open up the phone so they could get in and see if they could find any information about, the terror plot that these guys had infiltrated. And Apple says no every time. And they're saying it's for our privacy, for the people who have iPhones, privacy. And so I find that really interesting. So I'm just going to real quickly read over. This is an article that came out of The Guardian. It said 3 years after the high-stakes battle between Apple and the U.S. federal government over unlocking suspected terrorist iPhone, a new standoff is shaping up between the privacy-minded tech company and the Trump administration. On Monday, the U.S. Attorney General William Barr called on Apple to help the Federal Bureau of Investigation unlock 2 iPhones related to the fatal shooting of 3 Americans at a Florida naval base in December. The shooting by a Saudi Air Force cadet who was training with the U.S. forces is now considered an act of terrorism, Barr said. So who's right? Brad, do you think that Apple should unlock these iPhones in this situation, or do you think Apple's right?
It depends on exactly what they're asking for. If they're asking to open these specific iPhones for these terrorists, then I think they should. If it is going to be a blanket thing to give them access to open, unlock phones anytime that they get a subpoena in the future that rolls over to American citizens, then I don't agree with it. Because like the phone that they're trying to open right now, or the two phones, were phones that were used by, what was he, a lieutenant colonel of the Saudi Arabian Air Force, maybe? So is not a U.S. citizen, is not protected by our Constitution. And if they can unlock that on a terrorist, I don't have an issue with that. What always concerns me with these things is if it becomes a blanket thing to where they can get a subpoena and start opening everybody's phones, then we go back to the whole Patriot Act conversation to use the fear of terrorism to take away people's privacy.
So I think you're getting to the crux of the question pretty quickly, I think. And how many times do you get on Facebook during the week without not on your iPhone? Or not on your phone? Like the random person in the United States or around the world, they get on these apps and we're on these social media platforms on our phone. So to me, it's hard to define who is and who is not a terrorist without tapping into these phones. And so, because this guy's a Saudi Arabian citizen, like, really doesn't bother me or hold weight with me, because I still don't feel like this private industry should stand up against the government to protect the people who are loyal to them and who buy their products.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way as both of you. It's, if I knew that by them unlocking the phone, it was going to save lives or it would take down a terrorist, then I'm okay with it. My big question is, what if they do give the government a backdoor into these phones, and then now a hacker, these hackers are they find that backdoor and they get in and they create havoc, because iPhones are pretty safe as far as security wise. Excuse me, they're pretty safe. So that was my biggest thing. Now the other question, real quickly, and I want to ask both of you, and Brad, you can answer first. Does it concern you at all that with all the things that our government can do, they can't unlock an iPhone?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that the intelligence agencies can't unlock a phone. And, they've come out and said, well, we can unlock, there's a certain system or program and you can unlock like through like an iPhone 7, but not the new ones. That's a little weird to me. That's the kind of thing that always makes me think that there's something else around it. And again, that's why I said, if it is a specific, I think that they should comply. And if Apple opens the phones for them to cooperate in the investigation, I don't care what administration it is, I don't feel comfortable with the government being given a backdoor to get this information. Because then what you go to is you go from saying, okay, well, these are foreign terrorists. But that's going to apply the same if you say, okay, well, this is homegrown terrorist. So where do you draw that line of saying, okay, well, we had suspicion that Jimmy Don was a terrorist because this or this or this, and you can find a number. I mean, they find the person and can then find the crime. So I'm definitely against having a blanket backdoor that is given to the government.
And I think that's probably what Apple, is standing in opposition of, because I figure like if there is a backdoor to these phones, then it has to be a blanket backdoor, right? It's going to be a backdoor that covers everybody's phone. It's going to cover Jimmy's phone. It's going to cover Brad's phone. It's going to cover JD's phone. And so, I stand with the Apple. Like, if you want to look in this phone, man. But let me talk out both sides of my mouth again. If somebody murders one of my kids, I want to get on their phone. I want to see who's influenced this person, who's responsible. Because guess what? Now I'm about to go Liam Neeson, and I'm going to go take it, and I'm about to search people down. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it goes back to that balance. Like, I don't know, man. Like, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I don't want to give up my private activities on my own.
We give up enough of our privacy as it is, not to have give a hacker or the U.S. government a backdoor into our stuff. So.
Sure.
And I also feel like this kind of gives Apple an opportunity to look as though that they are standing up for everybody's privacy. But do you really think that Apple is that concerned about our privacy on the other side when it comes to what they can sell, your information, your buying habits, those things that are sent all over the place? Another question, I don't have the answer to this. I just wonder, a majority of these iPhones are made in China.
Sure.
Right? Do you think... do you think that...
JD, that point's taken.
Do you think that they stand up to China the same way that they will stand up to our government? Because I happen to think if China would come in and tell them what they were going to do, that's probably what they'd do.
So let me ask this question. In the cases that I think we all pretty well agree, we don't want to give our privacy up, but let's say there is a situation where there's an impending terrorist attack and we've got intelligence, we've got somebody in custody, and we have their iPhone, and it's imperative that we get into that iPhone to see if we can stop the attack. Now, it's like we always say, with everything that we talk about, is who gets to make the decision that it's okay to unlock the phone. Do you think that it should go through a judge? Just like a court, like getting a subpoena or a warrant or something like that in that scenario? Or should the president have, the final say? Should it be somebody in the FBI, the CIA? I mean, like if in that case, if you really needed to get into the phone to maybe stop a terrorist attack, who gets to decide that?
So really, I mean, you think about this and you think about the steps that it's got to go through. So if you were going to pass a bill, right?
Right.
Do you want our Congress as it is now writing that bill? Do you want our Senate as it is passing that bill? Who do you trust and not trust through the process? Do you trust the court system as it sits right now as a whole? And again, I'm not talking about every judge, but we obviously know there are some shady things going on in pretty much the entire system. So to Jimmy Don's point, who makes that call? And again, I think if you have some kind of blanket backdoor to get into the phones, that you open up the opportunity for just another way for them to know who, when, what, who you talking to, when are you talking to them. And I still have a hard time believing now that they don't have access to that information anyway.
But it's crazy because, like, how easy would it be for you? And I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you have seen the movie or the play, 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
Where the guy says, he said he's going to kill him, out of anger. And how many times have you messed around with your friends like, I'll smack that bitch around, I don't care. And then all of a sudden you're a woman beater. But like, I didn't mean that at all. Like, I was just saying it in jest. Like, I was saying it just to be funny or whatever. And so now the government breaks into my phone and they're hanging me because I've said this. But what's the thing about text messages or DMs or whatever is there is no context, right? Or there is no emphasis on the words that you use. Like, it's hard to tell, much harder to tell in a text message, the emphasis, is this person joking? Or are they being for real in a text message or a DM than it is if they're talking? And I think that's what you get into when you get into these breaking these phones or hacking these phones. And Oh man, I don't know. Like,
Well, it's just
Jimmy,
like,
you asked a really good question, and I'm not sure I got an answer for you, man. Like I don't know.
it kind of goes back. It's the same discussion as like the gun law or the red flag law.
Sure.
Is who gets to decide, and you want to make for certain that they're not able to use just anybody can say, oh, they're a danger, there's something wrong, where they can just go grab our phones and go through them. I do not want to give that privacy up at all. I said, but at the same time, it's what we've been saying, and it's like all these issues. We were talking about the genetics issue. There's certain cases where you're like, man, how do you look at a parent and tell them, no, you can't do this? And then if you can stop a terrorist attack, get in their phone. Or why not, if they're a dead terrorist, just take the phone and hold it in front of their face, and the FaceTime, the face thing will unlock it for you. I don't know.
The best thing I can say about my phone is if I ever die and you guys are still alive and you find my phone, put on some rubber gloves before you pick it up and throw it in the river, like the Ohio River will be fine. Yeah, and don't ever eat any fish out of her.
So for people who don't know, JD has given us very strict instructions. There's written instructions what to do with JD's phone and a couple other things if something's to ever happen.
Yeah, there is a kill switch for his phone.
Yes. So just FYI. So just in case people wondered.
I'm sure people
Just
will.
one more point on that. It's something that's concerning to me with the more intrusive that it gets with being able to get into your calls, your text, into your home is if we're not already there, I can see a place in the future to where they will use the information, taking your privacy without you knowing about it, almost going backwards in due process. So they don't have enough to go after you, but they can pry through here where you don't know they're there, use that to find anything to then go backwards and then cover themselves as far as due process is concerned. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah. And even do that without a warrant or anything, man. It's definitely like due process in reverse, right?
Yeah, because they can do it and then come back and say,
oh, we also got this.
Oh, well, we found this, and this. So, here's why we need a warrant to do this.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting topic, man. It's something I'm going to keep up with a little bit.
You got to.
I guess it was a few years ago, similar situation happened, and the government was able to get some company to unlock it and just kind of let it go. But there was some talk that maybe the U.S. was going to sue Apple to try to get them to do this.
Well, I think what happened is that loophole or that back door was there with Apple, and they figured out what that back door was, and they've shut it down.
They say that the reason Apple, I think this is BS, but they say the reason Apple comes out with new phones every so often is because the government figures out how to get into their phone, and so they put a new one out that they can't get into. Now, I think that's BS. I think it's about selling phones, but I did read that somewhere. So let's move on. Something else, technology-wise, interesting and sports-related all at the same time. And that is the Houston Astros and the stealing signs scandal with video equipment. And, guys, I'll be honest with you. When I first heard about this, it wasn't anything that I thought, well, isn't that what you do in baseball, is try to steal the signs? I mean, the guy on second base is constantly, looking, trying to, steal signs from the catcher. Yeah. But you've got some people who, I think I read something today, there's 60 witnesses. There was an actual pitcher who was on the team. That is in Oakland now, and he's the guy that actually went on record. So this is from, where's this from? This is from MSNBC. And it says, after MLB's damning report showing how the Houston Astros used an elaborate system of cameras, monitors, and trash cans as percussion instruments to steal the pitching signs of opponents playing at Houston's Minute Maid Park, the league suspended Houston general manager Jeff Luhnow and manager A.J. Hinch just an hour before the Astros fired them. Two other MLB managers have lost their jobs, New York Mets manager Carlos Beltran and Boston Red Sox manager Alex Cora. Brad, you played baseball at a fairly high level. I mean, what do you think? Isn't that something that teams just try to do anyway? Stealing signs?
Yes, I mean, stealing signs is part of the game. That's part of the chess match of baseball. It's constantly going on. That's why you'll see, if there's nobody on base, you might be given simple signs. One's fastball, two's curveball. Then when you get a runner on second base, if the runner can pick up the signs, that's why you'll see them going through the sequence, right? When you'll see the catcher going through all the different stuff. So the guy on second, he picks up the signs, and you're batting, and he's giving you a signal like he might be in a normal running position with his hands, hands up in front of him. That might mean fastball. If he's got his hands on his knees, curveball. If he's kind of rocking his arms back and forth, might be off speed or slider or whatever.
I gotta be honest, I did not know that though. I'm acting like I did, but I did not. Like, did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know.
It's something that constantly goes on, and sometimes you don't see this really in the majors, I don't think, but in high school and at the college level, a lot of times the coach will be giving signs from the dugout to the catcher. So you'll have the other team trying to pick up the signs from the coach before they get to the catcher. And then there's so much going on that you don't see in the game. Like we had an instance where a team that we had played multiple times through the summer was picking our signs off from the dugout, like every game. So what we did the next time we played them is our same coach giving the signs is sitting there going through his signs, and he's just making stuff up. He's not even giving real signs.
He's dead. He's a dummy.
We've got another coach that's sitting 15 feet away from him, but the catcher's still looking in that direction, and he's over there giving basic signs like if he's got his arms crossed, it's a fastball, or just how he's positioning himself. That stuff goes on all the time. It's part of gamesmanship, and it's been going on since the beginning of baseball, and I don't have a problem with that at all. Some people, I think there's obviously a benefit to getting the signs for a lot of people. Me personally, I didn't really want to know when I was hitting. Maybe more so with a breaking pitch, but like if you knew a fastball was coming, I'd want to get way out. I would get way out on my front leg just anticipating it. But again, we're talking about, I'm talking about as a high school and college level. So I played against, I hit against a lot of guys that pitched in the majors, but they weren't major league pitchers yet. So you're talking about a whole different level where somebody's going to be throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and then break off a slider. But so there's definitely, I think from some of the numbers that have popped up, there is definitely an advantage.
Well, JD, that was going to be my question.
Oh no, here we go.
These guys, like, it's interesting to watch a football game with you because JD actually knows what's going on the field. Like, he understands it. Where he's a defensive coordinator, he understands the game. It's interesting to watch a football game with you and listen to you break it down.
Sure.
I would have to think that these guys, they're so good that if they know what's coming, they're going to be able to hit the ball. I think Jose Altuve, the one who the big, like during that World Series, was hitting 450 at home and 150 on the road. So, do you think it helps them that much?
No, sure. Because if I know, and Brad can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I know I don't have to worry about a curveball now, my stance may be different. If I don't have to worry about a slider now, my stance will be different. If I don't have to worry about a changeup, my stance will be different. I know I'm anticipating what's coming to me, and so yeah, absolutely. And same thing with football. The quarterback gets a pre-snap read, right? He knows I know where the safety's at. I know where the coverage are in. If I send a man in motion, you see a lot of teams, guys, even in the NFL, send a guy in motion because they're trying to figure out just what the coverage, the defense is in. And so if I know a man goes with the motion guy, I know we're a man. And so I know where I'm going with the football. And if I know they're in zone, and that lets not only the quarterback know, but the whole team knows, if somebody runs with the motion man, this is my route. If somebody doesn't run with the motion man, oh, well, we're not in man. We're in zone. So this is my route. And so there's a lot going on, and I'm sure the same way with baseball. And one of the things I used to do with softball is, I'm just a youth league softball coach, and that's as good as I am. But I would look at the batter, and if I had a girl on first base, I would clap once. That means I want you to steal. If I clap twice, come on, girl, let's go. That means I want you to run. And so, even though I was looking at and talking to the person at the plate, I was giving the sign to the person on first. And I'm sure that happens all the time.
Well, it's pretty interesting. Like as I dove into this a little more, like at first, I think when they first started doing it, like they had a TV installed in the dugout with only that feed from center field to the catcher, and that's how they were doing it. And they would bang on a trash can to give the sign. But I guess it got so loud that apparently, talking about Jose Altuve, that he actually had a buzzer on his chest, and they would buzz him. Like there's a video. I was telling Brad on the way over here. There's a video. I think he'd hit a home run or something. He was coming around, and they were going nuts. It was they won the game, and his team they won the World Series, and his teammates were getting ready to come out. They were going to rip his shirt off, and as he was coming down the third baseline, he was telling them, "Don't touch my shirt. Don't touch my shirt." And then when they were doing the big pile-on celebration, he went straight to the dugout and changed shirts and then came back out. And they actually interviewed him, one of the guys who actually broke the story. And I listened to the interview, asked him, why did you tell him not to take your shirt off? And he was like, well, I'm shy. And then the last time that happened, my wife got mad. And, it was kind of a nervous answer. And I thought, wow. Because I really thought at first, okay, they're stealing signs. Shame on the rest of you for not figuring this out. They got an advantage. They won a World Series because of it. And that's how I thought about it. Now, you get a little more technological, as far as putting buzzers on people and different things. But again, like I said, I always just thought that's what baseball was about. That's just what you did.
So at the end of the day, what do you do, though? Like, do you take these World Series titles away from these people, man? Like, to me, you don't. Like that's how the game's played. Like, you take the advantages you can take. Everybody wants to put, like, asterisks about Barry Bonds and all these people, or Bill Belichick in the NFL. But these guys found a way to win, man. Like, you get paid to do this. This is what you get paid to do, and go with it. Go ahead,
and
Brad.
now this is made all about the hitting aspect, which obviously there was a lot of home runs hit and those things. But knowing the signs is not just something that benefits you at the plate. Those guys at the plate need people in scoring position. Mm-hmm. So if I'm the guy that's on first base and I know what the signs are, it's all about, you're talking about a split second, when you're sliding into second in that tag. So if I know that a fastball's coming, if a 100-mile-an-hour fastball's coming, it's going to get in the catcher's mitt quick. It's a straight pitch. He's going to be able to pop up and throw it to second.
Sure.
If I've got a pitcher that throws a big hook and curveball,
sure,
you've got a little more time, and I'm gonna steal on that when I know that curveball's coming. And when I said that I think that stealing signs is part of the game, I'm talking about natural human eyeballs and what you can do within the confines of the baseball field with whatever is naturally on your person, right? Your eyes, your hands, your body movement. I think that using technology is absolutely way outside the lines, and I think they should be held accountable. To what extent, I don't know, but again, you look at some of the numbers, some of the differences just in the batting averages, you see that they got an obvious advantage.
Well, I saw an article where the pitcher actually said he would rather throw to a guy that's been juicing than a guy who knew what the signs were.
Sure.
Because what's so important to these guys, too, is not just the...
Well, he knows what the ball's going to be.
Right, and what is a lot more important than the location is the speed.
Right.
You're talking about when you're standing there swinging and somebody's throwing 90-plus miles an hour, the difference between a fastball and a changeup, if you're just talking about a couple miles an hour, completely changes things up. These guys are they do a good enough job of adjusting to the speed, but if you know the speed that the ball's going to come in there, making the adjustment to location is a lot easier.
So let me ask this then, Brad, just playing the devil's advocate here a little bit. Let's say you're a multi-million-dollar athlete or a multi-million-dollar manager, and this technology is available to you, and you can win a World Series and get this huge bonus. if you use this technology or not use this technology, what are you going to do? Because I feel like if you're a competitor, you're definitely going to use that technology. And I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I'll use that technology with a Little League baseball game right now. That's me though. Like go ahead.
Well, I just think that there is a, as far as just the purity of the game, that there's just a respect for how you play the game.
Right.
And that those lines shouldn't be crossed.
But what would you do if you had millions of dollars on the line? You're talking about your family either going to France for vacation or going to Myrtle Beach for a vacation. Like, I mean, it's a big difference. Like, so you would just,
I mean, I don't think there should really be any, I mean, you're talking about an integrity issue. I don't think should really even.
Yeah.
I ain't got much integrity in it. Like, cause I'm talking about, I'm a competitor. If I can find an advantage, like, I'm going to take that advantage. I don't mean to sound brash or sound like a butthole or whatever, but, I'm Bill Belichick. Like, I'm playing for the W, man.
Well, there's a correlation between what they claim the Patriots were doing, filming practices and different things, and this too. All right, so I've got two questions. One, this pitcher, the one who ratted out, actually went on the record. Would you want to play with that guy? Would you want to play with him knowing that he left your team, went to another, and then ratted you out? Is that a guy you would want to play with?
Now here I'm going to jump on the other side of this conversation, and again, please understand, I'm completely against them using the technology.
But if you was in the meeting, the manager said, "Here's what we got," would you use it?
At the same time, no, I would not use it. I would not use the technology. However, there is a unspoken brotherhood issue that. I just think that crosses the line. You don't want those people in your locker room. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like turning your mom in.
You out,
right?
Yeah, snitches get stitches.
So what I'm saying is, Brad, if you was on the Astros and the manager said he pulled you in this hitters meeting and he said, "All right, hitters, here's the signs. We've got to call on camera." Would you be like, "Oh man, I got to get out of here. I got to leave"?
Well, no. I think what Brad's saying though, because Brad was a baseball player.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like I know he knows. Dude, and Brad knows a lot more about baseball now.
And he believes in the purity of the game. Meaning he wouldn't do that himself. Now, if you're in that situation, it's kind of being forced upon you, and it's a team thing. You might. I might. I don't know. But at the same time, all right. So what would you do? Like, just say football. If you had a guy that went to another team and was giving up all your signs. Because, I mean, it happens in college football, pro football too, where you go to another team.
For sure. It happens all the time in football.
Would you want to play with that guy?
I think it happens all the time. Like, what you'll see is even with tonight, you've seen Mike Vrabel coaching for the Tennessee Titans, who used to play for Bill Belichick for a number of years. And he used some of his tactics to beat him in the AFC wildcard game. What I feel like as a different organization you'd have to do is change your tactics knowing that guy is available. But that's hindsight. But we're talking about foresight. We're talking about this guy coming to you before nobody knows what the signs are, but we figured them out. So now we've got these cameras with these signs on line that the center fielder was given, the catcher, whatever. So if the manager says, "Hey, Brad," or "Hey, Jimmy Don," if the center fielder grabs his crotch twice, it's going to be a fastball. Are you going to use that as your advantage as a hitter?
I'm sure you would.
Sure you would. You got to, because it's the nature of the game. But is it right? Is it good? No. But we're all competitors at the end of the day. We all want to win. If we can catch that small advantage, I think we're going to.
All right, so the second question is this, and it's something JD said as far as the punishment is concerned. And it's something that you actually brought up, Brad, before we met today. Based on the punishment that maybe is deserved for this cheating scandal, what about Pete Rose? What about Charlie Hustle? He got banned from baseball for life for betting on his team to win. It didn't really give him a competitive advantage. if he was betting on him to lose, that's one thing. He was actually betting on him to win. Do you think Major League Baseball ought to take a look at old Pete and maybe reinstate him so the man can get in the Hall of Fame? He's one of the greatest baseball players to ever live.
Yeah, he was my favorite player when I was a kid, and that was one person. My dad sat down with me, and when we were young in the 80s, that was at the tail end of his career when he was doing the player coach thing. Remember, there for a couple of years he was coaching.
Oh yeah, man, I love Pete.
Coaching and playing for the Reds, and I remember my dad telling me, if you are going to emulate anybody that you ever see on a baseball field, this is the guy right here. Charlie Hustle. He went after it. Didn't have a pretty swing. Didn't have nothing that he did look like it really stood out. But he was an absolute animal and played the game hard. Even being a huge Pete Rose fan, my issue was kind of the way that he handled it. He lied about it forever and said he didn't do it and didn't do it and didn't do it. And then finally he comes out and admits, well, he did do it. And that just happened to happen right as he was going to release a book and profit from it. I think the way that he has handled it has probably hurt him. Whereas I feel like if he would have went the route of, you remember when we had the steroid thing, and of all the names of the steroid, the Mark McGuires and the Sosas and the Bonds and all these names that came up, the one big name at the time that most people don't even bring up in the conversation anymore is Andy Pettitte. And what was the difference in what he did is he was the one person, he stood up, got in front of it. He said, look, I did this. I cheated. Here's why I cheated. It's not excusable. I apologize. And we are, as humans, are forgiving creatures. I think had Pete Rose done something earlier, years ago, admitted it and apologized, I think he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame right now, to be honest. But again, even with all that being said, you're talking about what he did on the field. Regardless of what he did off the field, he's one of the best baseball players to ever live. So you can go through Cooperstown and look at everything you want, but you're really not getting true history unless the man's picture's hanging up on the wall.
I agree, because I think they should have let Pete in a long time ago, and I feel like, and maybe this is wrong on my part, but I almost feel like what the Astros did, maybe the Red Sox, the Mets, the Mets, they just hired the guy, but the Red Sox are in this too, and they won a World Series too, and the manager was with the Astros when they started doing this, so he's probably picked up on it. And I feel like what they did as far as affecting baseball itself is far worse than what Pete did. And I honestly feel like they ought to let Pete in the Hall of Fame. I think it is a discussion that should be had based on what we've seen.
Now, I wonder, do you guys think that these are the only 2 or 3 teams that are doing this?
There are only 2 or 3 that get caught.
I think there's no doubt that they're not. Like, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, if you ask me.
Every time I sit and watch a basketball game, and it goes to a timeout, and the coach is over there running the plays, and you've got people sitting in the stands that are sitting 5 feet behind them, and I always think, surely by now, somebody's got a hot mic on that, or something where they can send a message to somebody and say they're going to run. I mean, maybe you couldn't stop it every time, but do you think it'd be beneficial with 5 seconds to go in the game and the team's running one play to be able to tell them, okay, yeah, they're going to do this pick and roll, and they're going to this guy here.
Well, this happened not 3 or 4 weeks ago with the Patriots and the Bengals. The Patriots were catching signs from the Bengals sideline, and they know what play they're going to run. And if you'll notice a lot of NFL games, the offensive coordinator, not so much the defense coordinator, because his coverage or alignment is obvious, but he'll cover up his mouth with a play sheet and call the play to the quarterback, whatever, because he's not trying not to give away signals. It's the same thing you're saying, but I just feel like, we got Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and all these guys. And especially Pete Rose. I think Pete Rose, like, it's crazy that he's not in the Hall of Fame because he is in the Hall of Fame. If you go to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, he's all over the place, right? All his records, his hitting records, all those things. He's everywhere. But his official bust is not in the Hall of Fame. But he's done no worse than what some of these other people have done, in my opinion.
And here's the kind of the big picture of this whole thing, and this doesn't just affect sports, but because we're talking about baseball, basketball, whatever else, I think that we're in a time right now where technology is growing at a pace that is way too fast for the laws and the rules to keep up with. So there are a lot of things that I think we're going to run into that are shady. They are cheating, but they're not necessarily illegal or against the rules at the time because the rules aren't set up for the time we're living in technology-wise.
No, absolutely. And then you got a sport, NASCAR, that is all about cheating.
Sure.
It was built on cheating. You know, I mean, they would try to get an advantage in their car. I mean, you know, like I said, I just think that's what sports are. It's always been that way. Like I said, I kind of agree with JD in that if it was there, are you going to do it? But I also agree with Brad. I'm more of a purist when it comes to baseball. That, you know, there's a purity to the game, and what you can do in the confines of those lines. If you can steal a sign from second, or you can steal, you know, a sign, then you do that. But actually putting a buzzer on you and buzzing you when you're doing it, I think is probably a little out of bounds. That's just my opinion. But I'm like JD too. You know, if you got it and you're a true competitor and you're trying to win, you're probably going to do it. You know, I mean, you're probably going to do it. So, but
not only just competitive wise, and I would love to win a World Series or a Super Bowl, but we're talking about money in your pocket, in your family's pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get bonuses. Like every playoff game you win in the NFL, you get a bonus like, going forward. $300,000 in my pocket for winning an AFC Championship game. I mean, that sounds like a good deal to me. I get to win and win. You know?
I think if we get to a point to where, from a competitive standpoint, I mean, I think there's a difference in being competitive and cheating the game. You know, for instance, there was a kid, and obviously we're not talking about the same kind of money, but there was a kid a few years back. I remember hearing the story. He won a golf tournament, and he got back to the hotel after the tournament and realized, I think you can have 14 clubs in your bag, maybe 13, whatever it is. He had one more club than he was supposed to have in his bag. And he went to his coach and he told him, hey, look, I had an extra club in my bag. Nobody would have known at this point. And the coach kind of left it up to him and was like, well, you won, but what do you want to do? And he turned himself in and gave away his victory because he felt like he had cheated. And again, maybe that seems extreme, but should there not be any integrity in what you do as an athlete?
I just pray and hope my kids are never that stupid.
No, but golf is another one of those sports where integrity is a big deal.
Right. You're right.
You know, like if you barely touch the ball, nobody sees it, nobody says anything, you're supposed to call foul on yourself.
No.
And that's a big deal.
And Jimmy Don, and I know, like even in our local softball league, like a lot of the coaches didn't like me because I was loud and whatever. Because I tried to root on my team. We did all we could to win. But we always played within the rules. If one of my girls stepped out the baseline and she was called safe, like I would call her out. I'm like, she's out. No, she's out. And there needs to be integrity. I get that. But when we start talking about dollars and cents, and we're talking about big dollars and cents, you know, whether the World Series or a AFC playoff game or an NFC playoffs game, I mean, we're talking about some real serious cash. Like, I think it's tough, man. Like I have integrity, but, and I know people are going to frown upon this, but my integrity can be bought at a certain price, you know, with these, you know, I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, I'm a competitor. I want to, like, if me and you play checkers, Jimmy Don, I'm going to beat your ass if I can. Brad, if me and you play badminton, I'm going to try my best to beat you 15-0. That's how I roll. And I ain't getting nothing for that. So now if you're throwing $130,000 on it or $300,000 on it, Like to me, that really changes a lot of the game. But also, I don't have $6,000 or $6 million in the bank. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And a lot of times, those guys are so rich anyway.
Right.
They're getting paid so much money that an extra $250
Right.
really ain't gonna matter to them. To us. It would, but
But the guys at the bottom of the roster, it really does matter, though.
Yeah.
So for us as adults sitting here, the story in the grand scheme of life is not really a big deal to us, right? This is going to come and go and just be another thing. But you think about these types of things when we were kids and you saw it in Sports Illustrated or you saw it on Sports Center. I bet we remember a lot more about scandals with players or whether it was the stuff with Pete Rose or whatever was going on 20 or 30 years ago than even our parents did because it's impressionable as a child. So if these things are happening, it's all over Sports Center. The younger generation is watching this, and if there is no consequences and it's just blown off as, well, no, there really shouldn't be any integrity in the game, then what should we expect as far as integrity in the future?
Yeah. No. All right, so let's move on to a topic that's far more serious, and it's something that's going to go down tomorrow in Virginia, and it relates back to what we talked about last week and people being upset about the Democratic House in Virginia getting ready to try to push through some of these gun laws that the governor there, Ralph Northam, tried to get through before. And this comes from the Washington Times. Police are scouring the internet for clues about plans for mayhem. Workers are putting up chain link holding pens around Virginia's picturesque Capitol Square, and one lawmaker even plans to hide in a safe house in advance of what's expected to be an unprecedented show of force by gun rights activists. What is provoking their anger in this once reliably conservative state is the new Democratic majority leadership and its plans to enact a slew of gun restrictions. This clash of old and new has made Virginia determined to prevent a replay of Charlottesville violence in 2017, ground zero in the nation's raging debate over gun control. Now, it's my understanding that tomorrow is a day in Virginia where many groups can actually come to the Capitol, talk to their reps, tell them what they think about the things they're voting on and all that. But it's turned into this huge gun rally. And the governor there has declared a state of emergency. I mean, like, it's become this massive deal. What's scary about it is you've got these groups like Antifa that says they're going to show up and walk with the anti-gun people. I've not heard this from many of the gun activists in what I've read, that they're saying, yeah, we're going to come and start a bunch of stuff. We're trying to, protest peacefully about the gun laws. But there is a lot of, people are scared that they're going to get out there and something's going to pop off. JD, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, we talked about this last week.
Yeah, well, I watched Governor Northam's press conference this week where he called for the martial law. Like, he didn't want people, carrying sticks, knives, guns, anything that could be considered a weapon onto the grounds there for the protest. And it is scary because I think the crowd is going to exceed what the local law enforcement can manage. Like, there's going to be weapons there. There just is. And it just takes one idiot from either side of the political party to do something crazy, and here we are in a bad situation. And it's just a bad deal, man. I'm a Second Amendment guy, but I don't think what going forward in the Virginia House or Senate is anything but common sense gun laws, as we read last week on the podcast. But it is scary times because I feel like one side wants to pit themselves against the other side so bad without knowing what the other side really stands for. And because I stand for a lot of left-wing ideals, but I also stand for a lot of right-wing gun laws, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are called right-wing rights. And it's a scary situation. I hope nothing goes off. Hope everybody's, peaceful protest. That's fine. I don't have no problem with that.
there are some things that are just seem a little off to me at this point. Like, some people from Antifa have said basically that they're coming to stand in solidarity with the guns rights people, which is maybe that's the case, but that would be a strange turn of events. I hope I'm wrong about this, but to me, it looks almost like a setup. Okay, so he's declared this emergency. Have you seen the pictures of the area they've got set up with these people? They have a fenced-in area, and I think there's only a couple entrances and exits. So they're demanding that those people file into that area but have no arms. So what would that look like if one person got in there that either had a weapon or could spook everybody, and you've got thousands of people corralled into a small area? You could see what could go wrong. Now, just because of Antifa tactics and things that we've seen in the past, I would not be surprised at all to see your Antifa type people show up wearing MAGA hats, NRA shirts, and pop something off, because this would be a perfect storm, a perfect example for them to make gun owners look crazy. Now, here's another thing about it that, you were talking about not having enough police presence to cover that, right? Like,
sure, absolutely.
Okay, so if the governor has demanded that nobody have their weapons there, most of these gun owners are going to come there with their weapons that would have to be locked into their cars.
Right.
So you're going to have hundreds or thousands of cars that probably have weapons in them without people in them. And if somebody just wants to break into all those vehicles, where do you think the police presence is going to be? It's going to be over here in the corral. I think there are just a number of things with this that it could go sideways really quick, and I hope I'm wrong.
Jimmy Don, his point is well taken. But, I mean, I just don't want to excuse the people on the right wing either. Like, because I'm part of these Second Amendment groups on these social media outlets. And a lot of these guys, I mean, they don't seem sensible. There's going to have to be some give and take on everything. I mean, we're in 2020. There's going to have to be some give and take, guys. If you want to, whatever you want to do, there's going to have some give and take on. I want the prescription drug costs to come down. I want free medical for everybody. If that means I'm going to have to give some money to the wall, then I'll do that to get that. Does that make sense? Like, but I feel like these guys on the Second Amendment, they don't want to give any take. They don't want to give any. It's my right to carry my gun to the courthouse, no matter what the situation is there, no matter what, who's there. Like, I just think it's a bad idea. And so we can't just say, oh, they're going to break into somebody's car and get their gun and pop something off, because it may not be true. It may be true. It may happen. Or the Antifa may put a MAGA hat on and shoot somebody and pop everything off. But some of these Second Amendment guys, man, like, I feel like they're chomping at the bit to fight. It's a sad situation. It's a scary situation. Like, I hope nothing goes on. Like, but this is serious business, man.
Yeah, tomorrow's a pretty serious thing. I mean, as much as I've read about it, I hope people keep their senses. But I'm kind of like Brad. What I've read, it almost is like these people are being set up for something to happen. That way they can blame the gun people. I read a quote the other day, and I think it was Hitler, that said the best way to take over the populace is to disarm them. And that's pretty scary, right? I mean, like, when it comes to... But
nobody's trying to do that. Nobody's trying to disarm them.
Well, I agree, because last week what we read through seems like fairly common
sensible
sense.
Things,
I agree
right.
with you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, background checks and
registration
and all that stuff seems pretty reasonable to me.
Sure.
maybe you have an opportunity to keep a gun out of a criminal's hand. It's always, for me, it's what slope does that start us down as it comes to gun confiscation. And that, I think, is what a lot of these people, and I agree, like we were talking about the Kentucky United group and the quote that you read,
sure.
what the guy posted, there are groups out there like that, okay, that are ready to go to civil war.
Not only groups, but there's individuals. You don't take a group sometimes. Sometimes an individual just being crazy. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, the thing is, what scares me about it is with Antifa's involvement. Because Antifa acknowledging that they're going to be there and they're going to do this, everywhere they go, there's violence. Everywhere. It doesn't matter. They instigate violence. And I cannot think of one, and maybe I'm wrong. If I am, somebody can let me know. But I can't think of one instance where Antifa showed up and there wasn't violence. And that, to me, is the scary part. Because they start popping off. Next thing you know, everybody's, it just turns into a massacre. Everybody starts shooting everybody. I mean, it's crazy. And what more could the lobby that's against guns to begin with, what would be better for them than to have something like that pop off? And that's a scary thought. Right. It's scary on both sides, in my opinion.
And anytime these things happen, these people get shipped in. You all remember this from within the last, I guess, 2 years, it's been just right down the road in Pikeville. And they had the march that was supposed to be like some big white supremacist march. And then you had Antifa was bussed in from California, I think is where they came from. And all the people from the community that I talked to in Pikeville were like, we've never seen any of these people before. I'm talking about the white supremacists too, right? I mean, they knew Antifa came from it, but it was like, these people aren't even from here. Now, for those of y'all listening that aren't local here, what Pikeville's a town, what about population, about 7,000 people, something like that. Yeah. So we're not talking about being in Chicago and saying, well, I don't recognize these people. in Eastern Kentucky, in about any town.
We know each other.
We know each other.
No, you're absolutely right. And I said, and it's a scary, scary situation. And I hope that we don't have to come back here next week and talk about something stupid happening.
Honestly, if someone's like, man, I've been anti-Trump on this podcast, and people know me, they know I'm anti-Trump. What am I going to do to protect myself this week? If something pops off, seriously,
Well, you think something's going to pop off here?
I mean, I think it could definitely.
No, when I say that now, I don't want to be fear mongering. I'm not talking about a civil war breaking out. I'm talking about at that specific
event. No, but I think you're, at that point, with something popping off, it's hard to tell where it might escalate to. I mean, some of these guys are ready to go to civil war, as the quote I read last week, over this gun right issue, which is actually not even an issue. It's not something. As a matter of fact, Donald John Trump has took more guns rights away from gun owners than any president in the last 50 years has by the bump stock regulation. Well, outside George H.W. Bush, from the gun stock bump stock regulation. But it's still a Republican Democrat.
How many people do you know that have bump stocks?
I don't know any. But that's my point. To my point is people were saying, oh, that's the first step. And it's a fear mongering thing. What's the next step? Always registration. Oh, what's the next step? Always confiscation. And so you're right. It's not a party issue, right? It's a person to person issue, and it's scary because this thing could pop off. This thing could pop off very quickly and get out of hand very quick, very, very quickly.
And maybe gun owners. I'm not talking about the couple nut jobs that pop up on there. I'm just saying, gun loving First Amendment people maybe are too extreme about saying, well, this step could lead to this step. However, historically, everywhere that there has been tyranny throughout the world, the guns have been taken. So should we not have a fear in the back of our mind of losing that right?
Oh, we should. But, and here's the point that we should all get to eventually. The lines are drawn where we draw them. As American people, as a democracy, as a republic, the law, wow. I've got a really good buzz. But the lines are drawn where we draw them, not where our government draws them. As Americans, we need to draw the line by how we do that, through elections. And so Virginia, as a state, Brad, does that state have a right to determine their own gun laws, or are they open as Second Amendment? Oh, they open everything and with no lines drawn.
No, again, and I think we covered this with the free speech thing on one of the last ones. I'm all for states' rights. However, the amendments is a national. I mean, that's what the country's founded on. So I don't think the state has the right to take away your Second Amendment. So people can have tanks in wherever they want them, or they can have RPGs everywhere, because those are bear arms, right? RPGs are you bearing arms. Is that what you feel? But you're talking about something completely different.
No, I'm talking about
a gun-free zone.
No, I'm talking about drawing lines. Where we're going to draw the line at? Is it at automatics? Is it at handguns? Is it where's that line at? That's what I'm asking. Who determines that? Is it the federal government or is it the state?
Well, to me, and I've said this many times on here, and probably because I'm as misinformed on this topic as anything, I've said many times, well, the state should decide, but Brad's right. It is actually a constitutional right, so that's a national
to bear
thing.
Arms.
It's the right to bear arms. Now, when you say tanks and things like that, I feel like that's a little more extreme and maybe not necessarily what they're talking about here that's going to go on in Virginia tomorrow. So, all right, let me ask.
So what is the Second Amendment? What does it give you right to bear?
But we're talking about they're making a determination. I mean, they're deciding what you can't have, that you can't have anything. They're not saying you can bring a gun. Hold on. Let me finish. They're not saying there's nothing in there, him saying you can't drive tanks or doing this. They don't want people to have guns there. So if we had something in our community here where some people just wanted to come and protest their Second Amendment rights, and you've got, say you do have one loose nut that gets in the crowd, would you feel better if you had a number of people that were responsible gun owners in that crowd with that one nut job in there? Because if he's in there by himself, he's going to do a lot more damage than if you have, you understand what I'm saying? Because we have these places that are gun-free zones, and that's where, look where all of the whether you want to talk about the schools or anything, all these things happen in gun-free zones.
But no, and I will go back with you. I will support you on that. I think gun-free zones becomes the kill zones, right? Because who's got the guns in the gun zone, in the gun-free zones? The perpetrators, right? You go to Virginia Tech, the guy killed a bunch of people. But I'm telling you, if I'm in a rally and this guy sneaks a gun in and he's around a bunch of law-abiding citizens who are there to support the same rights that he's protesting with you with, you're more likely, and you may disagree or not, to dig your heels into that and say, by God, he's got the right to have that gun, and support him, than not. I don't know. Am I off base? Because I don't think I am.
Let me ask this question. This same topic, just maybe a little different direction. Do you feel like, because apparently this is a day in Virginia where lots of people show up, right? Not just gun owners. Lots of people show up. Do you feel like they've made it worse by saying, okay, we're going to declare a state of emergency. We're going to do this. We're going to corral these people in a pen. We're going to do this, this, and this. Whereas if they would have just said, okay, yeah, you can come here and peacefully protest. We're not calling a state of emergency. Do you think they've made it worse by doing all the things that they've done?
Yeah, because once you start to push fear, then you get emotions higher, and then that's when you get people digging in. Well, you say I can't do this. Well, I'm gonna do this. So yeah, I think that absolutely makes a difference.
JD, do you think?
No, I agree. I think it's like telling your teenage daughter she can't go on a date. She can't date this guy. Like that just makes it more appealing, right? Like he just makes him more appealing, and to be there more appealing. So yeah, I
kept telling my sister to stay away from Brad, and she married him. I don't know.
See, Tiffany.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yes, I hope common sense dictate the day at the end of the day tomorrow, and I hope nothing pops off and we all can get past this. Like, it's not. Do not believe the hate that the fear mongering that the NRA is spewing out.
No, I agree, and like I said, I hope this is the last we have to talk about this. It goes through. Like I said, what I've read, it makes sense to me, and I just hope nothing happens, and we don't have to talk about this again next week. So, so we're running, fairly long. We've been going a little long here the last few episodes, but there's a couple other things I do want to get into. And one is, and I don't know if you all saw this or not, and I found this surprising, as much grief as they gave Trump. But this comes from CNN and says Governor Wanda Vasquez Garcet fired the island's emergency manager hours after a warehouse filled with supplies was discovered. The emergency aid is believed to be from when Hurricane Maria hit the island 2 years ago, the governor said. Carlos Acevedo, director of Puerto Rico's Office of Emergency Management, was dismissed Saturday. The governor appointed Major Jose Reyes, the adjutant general of the Puerto Rico National Guard, to replace him. Several residents were seen opening the rolling metal doors of the building and calling for authorities to distribute the supplies. Families began lining up Saturday afternoon outside the warehouse, hoping to get bottled water, food, and emergency radios. Now, Puerto Rico's had some earthquakes here recently. And now you find a warehouse full of supplies. And, I mean, they were bashing Trump when all that went down. I think it was Hurricane Maria, right? When all that went down, like he wasn't getting supplies there. And then you find supplies in a warehouse from 2 years ago that had never been used. I mean, the guy should have got fired, in my opinion.
Well, and did you see the pictures and the videos? This wasn't like there was a couple boxes of Cheetos in the corner
this was massive
thing of water. You're talking about pallets upon pallets of supplies. I mean, obviously should be fired, but how would that not be criminal? I think in that case, just because of public knowledge, and when they find out what's happening, I think that's going to cause a big enough uproar just in itself. But, these were the people that were trying to blame our government for not sending them supplies. And you remember you had the mayor that had the SOS hat, we need help, and they had these supplies and weren't distributing them. Like I said, I don't know how that is not criminal. I mean, can you imagine the need that these people had, and that whoever it was, maybe it was just one person or two people, or what you would think that. I know that one person is not the one that drove one forklift and hauled all that stuff into that warehouse. So there's got to be more than one person. So what was their agenda? What do you think, JD?
So I feel like this is one of those stories where the truth is kind of somewhere in the middle. Like, to play a little bit of devil's advocate, if you're going to read that article that Jimmy Don was reading, it says the guy who was accused of all these things says about 600 pallets were distributed when Hurricane Dorian and Hurricane Karen threatened Puerto Rico during a drought that affected the island last year. Nearly 80 of those pallets remain in the warehouse because they expired, he said. There have not been orders to seize or destroy these items at any point. But none of these items, nobody's have been turned away for needing the items. And so, here's what I liken it to. So we're here in Martin County, and let's say this podcast, we decide to have a big fundraiser to give school supplies to the kids of Martin County, right? And we don't have the turnout we expect, but we bought all these supplies. So what happens? The supplies stand there. And so this could be the case, man. I mean, it honestly could be. I know that's not popular opinion, and I know we don't want to see this headline and jump on this guy, but if these people don't need the relief that was given to them, then let's give. I'm ready to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, let me give you a real life example.
Okay.
So I've said on here 100 times, Martin County Water, chairman of the board,
sure.
have been for a couple.
Jimmy Don's chairman of the board. If anybody don't know,
yeah. We had an event about a year into us taking over the board, where Tyler Childers came to town, and people donated water, and we gave it out that day. But we had several pallets left over that we didn't give out that day, and we stored in a building, an air-conditioned building, that we kept for an emergency.
Right.
And it was told to me, well, you need to give this stuff out during a boil water advisory. Okay, that makes sense. That's not necessarily a horrible idea, but you can't give out water every time there's a boil water advisory. We had a situation where water went out on turkey, and we distributed that water. But we didn't just leave it sitting there. 2 years later, we would take it and give it out over in some of the housing projects. We would do different things, and then what we had left over, we gave out during the Christmas. We didn't just leave it there. We didn't forget about it. It wasn't there for 2 years. Most of that stuff has an expiration date. So I think the idea that this guy just forgot it there, I think if that's the case, then he's incompetent, and he should have been fired. We had the water there. We weren't going to give it out just for any reason. But once we got close to expiration, then we took and gave that water out to the needy in our community.
I mean, good. That's good. But we're talking about not talking about a community here. We're not talking about 500-600 homes. We're talking about
this is in a community.
No, we're talking about Puerto Rico, though. Puerto Rico's a big as a state. Like it's the territory.
It's a community in Puerto Rico, though.
No, but we're talking about the governor, right, or the guy who's running Puerto Rico. Like would be the governor of Kentucky. So, go ahead, Brad.
Well, saying that maybe they didn't need to give the stuff out at the time, the whole time this was happening, they were complaining that we weren't giving them enough. So it wasn't that they had an excess of supplies. They were saying we didn't give enough, to the point that we then agreed, I think there's been some kind of hold on it now, we agreed to give them another $8.6 billion with a B. Not $100,000 for some cubes of water. $8.6 billion. So it doesn't sound like that they didn't have a need, that the people didn't have a need for these supplies.
And they've had these earthquakes there too. I mean, they could have given that stuff out. That's what I'm saying.
But 600 pallets of water is a lot of water, right? They give out a lot of water. They did give out a lot of stuff. I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know. But I'm interested to see where it leads. But we'll see. I still know what else. We'll see.
Well, I don't either. I mean, like I said, I found it interesting based on my experiences, and with that.
But 600 pallets of water is a lot of water, though, right?
No, that's a whole lot of water, dude. We probably gave out. I don't know how many pallets of water we gave out.
Sure. Right. Okay. Cool.
But we had water left over, and we didn't forget it was there. That's all I'm saying. And when our community needed it, we gave it out.
Sure.
And then when we realized we were getting close to the expiration on those things, then we got it out to the needy in our community. And, I don't know. Like I said, that's just from personal experience looking at that, something, not similar. Like you said, it's not similar on scale. But it does have some.
It's similar, but it's not similar. That's what you're saying.
Right. Well, no, it's the exact same thing. It's just scale.
It's the same exact thing, but it's not. Well, but I got you, man. Yeah.
So, all right. So let's move on to. Yeah, let's move on to, I guess, what we'll consider this our last topic. And this had to do with, you had the impeachment this week, and we've argued around about impeachment on this show multiple times. But it actually happened this week. They sent the articles of impeachment over to the Senate. The trial's going to start maybe Tuesday, I guess. That same night on MSNBC, there was a guy that did an interview, and forgive me,
Lev Paranas. Rachel Maddow.
On Rachel Maddow, and it says, let's see here. The headline says, "Who is Lev Paranas? Soviet-born operator thrust into Trump impeachment scandal. Has he delivered the most devastating blow yet to Donald Trump's defense, or is he merely a desperate man trying to save his skin? Lev Paranas is the latest obscure figure to find himself thrust center stage by the impeachment of the U.S. president." So, I thought the timing was interesting, that it was the night of. This guy's in trouble. So, JD, I'll ask you first. Is this a guy trying to get himself out of some trouble? Or is this just another maybe I guess like a secondhand person that's trying to implicate Trump?
Well, first off, this is a guy trying to get himself out of trouble. But is this another secondhand guy? No, he's like, how secondhand can you be? I guess it's secondhand. You're talking to Giuliani all the time, every day, every single day. And he's telling you what to tell the administrators in Ukraine. So, yeah, like, he's trying to throw Trump under the bus to get himself out of trouble. Like, that's what he's doing, like, for sure. But is it damaging to Trump? And are the Republicans seeing it? Absolutely. That's why the Senate can't dismiss this trial as fast as they want it to be.
It's been kind of confusing since the guy came out, because a couple months ago, when he originally got indicted, then he was a Giuliani crony and this person and had no credibility. And then now that he's saying that he's going to come out on Trump, he is the second coming of Christ. I personally think if he's got information on this, I would like to see him testify in the Senate trial. I think that would be great. But it was kind of funny. I was watching. Because he was on Maddow. He was on Anderson with Cooper. Anderson Cooper, and Anderson Cooper asked him, basically about prove or have anything, and he said, "Well, I'm not here to debate you," and they just kind of let it go. But I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen it on American media, but on what's it called, CNN One or CNN, their international thing. There's CNN all over the world. It's just they'll have some of our shows and some of theirs. But they interviewed the what's it called, the highest diplomacy guy in Ukraine, the foreign minister of Ukraine, and the CNN woman asked him specifically about that, and he said, that the guy was basically one of these guys that tried to mingle around with everybody and act like, he said, we don't even have any reason to talk to anybody like him. We've got a great relationship with the State Department. And he said, I personally don't believe anything the guy says, but we'll see what happens.
So what's interesting is, like, you see people trying to discredit this guy. And it's like, one of the tales he tells is when Zelensky was, when Shora, what was his last name? What's his name? Shorchenko, the guy who was the president in Ukraine before Zelensky.
I can't pronounce any of them, JD. Yeah, but yeah, something Chenko.
Yeah, Sorchenko, I think. So Trump tried to get him to announce an investigation into Biden. And I'm going to come out and support you if you do that. So he didn't do that. So Zelensky runs on an anti-corruption bill or an anti-corruption platform in Ukraine. He says, we don't want corruption in Ukraine. And Trump, so he gets elected, and Trump sends this guy, Paranas, through Giuliani, says, if you open up an investigation into Biden, we're going to send you Vice President Pence to come to your inauguration. If not, we're going to send you Perry. So Zelensky, who was running on the anti-corruption platform, says, we're not going to open up an investigation into Biden. We don't have no reason to. So guess who comes up to the inauguration? Perry. was just exactly what Trump said was going to happen. So it's like you're trying to disqualify his expertise or his qualifications for this, but the guy he's been on par so far, and that's what happens when if you're saying, like, originally we was like, oh, his credibility's bad. Well, his credibility's bad because we know what he's saying was bullshit, because we know what happened after he said what he said. But now we know that what he said was, this guy's probably legit now because what he's saying is legit.
But and again, like I said, I'm saying that, if they could have the guy testifying in Senate, bring it in. But forgive me for questioning somebody who has been indicted, who on bail right now has been indicted for fraud. His company was actually called Fraud Inc., which is crazy.
He's on fraud because he was trying to cover up for the president, by the way, on campaign finance reform. But go ahead.
No, he was trying to cover it for himself.
Well, campaign finance.
No, it was something that he had done.
No, and campaign finance for 100%.
It had nothing to do with Trump. The reason he started that Fraud Inc. company was he was trying to keep things from coming out about him on the internet. You can go read that right now. It had nothing to do with Trump. So, all right. So, I actually do have a couple of questions about impeachment and just some optics things I saw.
Here we go.
No,
Ready, Brad?
I was interested to see what you guys thought.
Sure.
Just a couple things. Like Pelosi, I listened to, traveled to Columbus this weekend, and I actually listened to a podcast Joe Rogan did with Bill Maher. And I always liked Bill Maher as far as being a comedian, and that show that he does on HBO, I would watch that from time to time.
Yeah.
Smart guy. He's an anti-Trump guy. It's fine. I think the jokes are funny that they do, that he does. And he actually made a lot of sense on that podcast. Have you listened to that yet, JD?
No, I haven't.
You ought to check it out. He actually makes a lot of sense because he's bashing Trump a little bit, but he's talking about how the left and, the things that they do and just...
No, they have. Definitely. Yeah. Sure.
But it was pretty interesting. But a couple things that I saw, like Nancy Pelosi was on real time Friday night, and she said again, Trump will be impeached forever. Okay, that's fine. She said that a couple of times, which again leads me to believe that was her goal is to impeach Trump. Didn't matter what the facts were, whatever. She just wanted to impeach Trump.
Right.
When they were doing the impeachment ceremony, they literally brought out a stack of pens, and she would sign one letter of her name with these pens. And then when they were done, she gave them to, the impeachment
council
team, and then Maxine Waters was there. And look, it was like a celebration. It was supposed to be solemn and all that. They've said it's a solemn occasion. They were all tickled to death, and here's a commemorative pen for when we impeach Trump. I just thought the optics of that were really bad. I didn't care for that. Brad, we obviously don't think Trump should be impeached, but just from the optics of that, I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't lose sleep over any of it. I don't have very high expectations of Pelosi or a lot of people in Washington, just in general, on both sides. But it was almost so ridiculous. Like you would think, if you were trying to at least give the perception that this was a solemn moment, who on your PR team or in your group was like, well, this would be a good idea. Let's spend however much money and let's get these pens. It just seems silly to me. But
Maxine
again,
Waters was back there holding it like it was, and I thought, man, that's just that. If you're truly trying to make the case that the president did something wrong and that it rises to the level of impeachment, then that truly is a somber thing, that our president has to be impeached because he did something so illegal that you take him to impeachment. It's not, JD, I know you're not, you don't necessarily like Trump like we do, but did you think the optics were bad on that?
No, yes, absolutely. And I'm not, guys know me well enough to know I'm not on board with all the Democrats do. Like, it's not good that our president's being impeached. It's not good that he broke the law. It's not good that whatever things happened. It's not good. And to be out celebrating in front of the cameras, that's not a good thing either, man. Like, it should be a very, like you said, a solemn occasion. Like, we should go through the impeachment process heartbroken. Like that we got to do this. Not that, wow, we get to do this. Which is, I think, unfortunately, the way I feel like some of these Democrats are. Yeah, I think, you think I went into this administration like, man, I hope Trump fails. I hope he breaks some laws. No, that's not me, man. And I wish that was every person, because I'm not going to cut my nose off to spite my face. I want the president to be successful with his financial policies, with his domestic policies, with his international policies. But it's unfortunate that this is where we are. And, I hate to see us acting out in a manner that we're celebrating it.
Yeah, I just didn't like that. I thought, okay, if you want me to take this serious, that you think he actually did something.
You knew to act in a somber manner,
right? Yeah. I didn't care for the way. All right, so, guys, check us out on Podbean, on iTunes, on Snap. Well, we don't have Snapchat, do we? I said Snapchat. But I was going to say Snapchat.
Instagram, you meant?
Instagram. That's right.
We're not.
But check us out, and we hope you guys enjoyed this show. I enjoyed it. It was a fun debate. Some good topics tonight, guys. So As we always in the show, from myself, from JD, from Brad, no matter how bad your day's going, no matter how bad your week's been, if you just add bourbon, it always gets a little bit better. Talk to y'all next week.